So imagine for a second that you're holding a book,
Okay.
and it's not just any standard sci-fi paperback. It's a portal into a very specific kind of grimy and just utterly fascinating corner of the universe.
I like where this is going.
Right. Today, we are cracking open the novelization of The Two Doctors,
Oh, yes.
written by, honestly, the absolute legend of the genre, Robert Holmes. And our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack this complex web of alliances, betrayals, and, well, culinary horrors.
Culinary horrors is definitely the right phrase there.
We're going to be looking at the scientists, the military, specifically the Sontarans, and this deeply unsettling race called the Androgums.
Right, and we have incredible source material for this. We're looking closely at Holmes's own novelization of his original television script. And the word legend, it really isn't a word we throw around lightly here.
No, definitely not.
If you know anything at all about the history of the show, you know that Robert Holmes is essentially the architect of its darker side.
The cynical side.
Exactly. The more cynical, infinitely more witty side. He wrote the original TV script for this story, and then he adapted it into the book. And what is so compelling about this specific deep dive is that in the book, Holmes really takes the handcuffs off.
He absolutely does. Because on TV, you have budgets, right? You have censors.
The famous BBC budgets.
Right. You have rubber suits that maybe don't look quite as scary under the studio lights as they should in your head. But in the book,
Yeah.
It is visceral.
It's incredibly violent.
It is. And it is surprisingly obsessed with food.
Which is such a weird angle for a space opera.
Yeah.
But it works. It is essentially a culinary horror story disguised as a space opera. I mean, that is genuinely the best way to describe it.
So before we get into the meat of it,
Intended.
pun absolutely intended.
Yeah.
Let's set the stage a bit. The title, The Two Doctors, it promises a fun reunion. You hear that and you expect a romp.
You do.
You've got the second Doctor, who is this scruffy, flute-playing cosmic hobo. And then you've got the sixth Doctor, who is just this brash, colorful explosion of ego. You'd expect a buddy comedy.
And you do get moments of that, certainly. The banter is there, but the context is incredibly grim.
Yeah, it really is.
This isn't a party. It's a rescue mission, and one that spirals into a massive political thriller. The stakes are wildly high.
Universe-ending stakes.
Exactly. We're talking about the potential unauthorized use of time travel by a notoriously warlike race, the Sontarans. And on top of that, the corruption of the very laws of physics.
Plus, we are introduced to this new alien species, the Androgums, who, frankly, might just be the most disturbing creation Holmes ever put on the page.
I would agree with that. They are terrifying. And it's not because they're, these grand evil masterminds twirling their mustaches.
No, not at all.
It's because of how they view us. To an Androgum, a human being isn't an enemy.
No.
We're ingredients.
Ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a thought we're going to have to sit with for the duration of this deep dive.
It's deeply uncomfortable.
It is. But let's start where the book starts. We aren't on Earth. We are at Space Station J7, which is out in the third zone.
Mm-hmm.
And the description here is just, well, it's not your typical gleaming white sci-fi hallway, is it?
Not even slightly. Holmes describes it as a giant three-dimensional thumbprint.
A thumbprint.
Just picture that for a moment. Most space stations in fiction are geometric, right? They're spheres.
Or wheels.
Wheels, needles, big spinning discs. But a thumbprint implies something organic.
And messy.
Yes, something messy. It suggests a smudge on the universe.
He also compares it to a cheap knuckle duster used by Godzilla.
That is the line. That is the line that instantly tells you everything you need to know about the aesthetic of this place.
It's ugly.
It's purely functional, it's brutal, and inside this ugly, brutal metal thumbprint, we have a character named Dastari.
Dastari. He is the head of projects there. He's a genetic engineer, obviously a super genius.
Unbelievably smart.
But he has an ego the size of a galaxy.
He really does. Dastari is a fascinating character study because he represents the classic mad scientist trope, but it's elevated.
Right, he's not in a lab coat laughing at lightning bolts.
Oh, exactly. He isn't cackling. He is cold, clinical, and utterly convinced of his own moral superiority. He truly believes that science can fix nature.
Which is the core theme of the book.
It is. He looks at a savage species, like the Androgums, and thinks to himself, I can fix them. I can nurture the savagery right out of them and leave only the intellect.
Nature versus nurture. It's the age-old debate. Can you take a creature that is genetically programmed to literally eat anything that moves?
Anything.
Give it a high IQ, give it a classical education, and turn it into a civilized being.
That is Dastari's gamble, and
Well,
he's already taken action on it. He has taken an Androgum female named Chessene, and he's augmented her.
augmented.
Yeah, he's performed massive invasive genetic surgery to boost her intelligence to the stratosphere, and he is so incredibly proud of her. She is his masterpiece.
He treats her almost like a piece of art.
He does.
But into this little Frankenstein experiment drops the second Doctor and his companion, Jamie McCrimmon. And they are definitely not there to give Dastari an award for his science project.
No, quite the opposite. They are there on behalf of the Time Lords.
And for anyone listening who might need a quick refresher, the Time Lords are the Doctor's people. They are these self-appointed guardians of time.
Right, and they've caught wind that Dastari is messing around with something called the Kartzreimer time experiments.
We should pause on that for a second. The Kartzreimer experiments,
Yeah.
it sounds very technical and dry, but what's the sort of explain it like I'm 5 version of why this is so bad?
Okay, so imagine the time vortex, the space you travel through to go back and forth in time. Imagine it is like a high-voltage power line.
Got high voltage, got it.
The Time Lords have the rubber gloves and the safety gear to handle it.
Right.
That's their biology. They are literally built for it. The Kartzreimer module, on the other hand, is like trying to grab that power line with your bare hands.
Oh.
It might work for a split second, but statistically speaking, you are going to get fried. And worse, it threatens to tear the fabric of the universe apart because it's so unstable.
So the Time Lords send the second Doctor to essentially serve as the process server. He's there to say, stop it, shut it down.
Exactly. It's a cease and desist order delivered in person. But Dastari, with his massive ego, he doesn't see it as safety. He sees it as hoarding.
He thinks they're just holding on to the power.
Yes, he thinks the Time Lords are just jealous hypocrites who want to keep all the time travel technology for themselves. So when the Doctor walks in, the tension is already at an absolute boiling point.
And then the boiling point explodes.
It really does.
Because the station gets boarded.
By the Sontarans.
Now the Sontarans, they are a clone race, bred entirely for war.
Literally created just to fight.
Right. They look sort of like potatoes in armor. They are deeply obsessed with honor. And they usually serve as the muscle in these kinds of stories.
But here, Holmes writes them with a very specific, very sharp kind of menace. We meet Group Marshal Stike and Major Varl. And they don't just beam in and shout orders, they slaughter.
Yeah, it's not a standard sci-fi skirmish.
The book describes the attack on the station as a massacre. It's not a bloodless pew-pew laser battle. Scientists are actively being cut down. It's utter chaos.
There's a scene early on that really sets the tone for how dark this particular story is going to get.
Yeah.
The Doctor and Jamie get separated during this attack.
Right.
Now, Jamie, remember, he is a Highlander from 18th century Scotland, so he's incredibly tough, he's a warrior, but he's not high-tech at all.
Yeah.
He manages to scramble into the ventilation system.
The infrastructure of the station, yeah.
Right, the infrastructure. And he's crawling through these dark metallic ducts, totally terrified. He looks down through a grill, and what he sees, I mean, this is genuinely traumatizing stuff.
It is the stuff of absolute nightmares. He looks down and sees his best friend, the second Doctor, trapped inside a glass cylinder, and the villains are subjecting him to what looks exactly like death throes.
The description of the cylinder is wild.
It's filled with this electric blue fire. And the Doctor is screaming, he's contorting.
And Jamie can't do anything to stop it.
That's the true horror of the moment. Jamie is clutching the metal grill so hard that his fingers are actually bleeding.
Oh, man.
He's watching the person he trusts most in the entire universe effectively being tortured to death. He believes, fully and truly, that the Doctor is dying right in front of his eyes. And it breaks him.
It totally shatters him. It sets up Jamie's psychology for the entire rest of the story. Because after that, he's not the brave adventurer anymore. He's just a survivor. He's deeply traumatized.
Exactly. He thinks he's the last man standing on this nightmare station. And while he's crawling away, just trying to survive the hour, he stumbles into the station's kitchen.
And this is the exact moment where the genre completely shifts. We go from action thriller to culinary horror.
Enter Shockeye.
Shockeye of the Quonsing Grig.
I love that you can say the full name without stumbling. It's such a mouthful.
It has a weird rhythm to it. But Shockeye is an Androgum. Unlike Chessene, who has been augmented and made quote-unquote sophisticated by Dastari, Shockeye is the raw material.
Yes, the baseline Androgum.
He is a kitchen servant. He is a chef.
But really not the kind of chef you ever want to meet.
No, because Shockeye represents the Androgum id. His entire worldview, his entire philosophy of existence is filtered through his stomach.
When he spots Jamie peeking out of the vent, think about what a normal guard would do. A normal guard would think, intruder, alert.
Right, sound the alarm.
But Shockeye thinks ingredients.
He literally assesses Jamie's meat-to-bone ratio.
He does. It's so creepy. He sees a Tellurian, that's their word for earthling, a Tellurian, and he specifically notes the soft white skin. He actually thinks about how tender the meat would be.
He wants to buy him.
Yes. He tries to figure out how to negotiate a price to buy Jamie from the Sontarans later on, just so he can put him in the cooking pot.
It's so disturbing because Shockeye isn't angry. He's not doing any of this out of hate or malice.
And that is the key insight into his character. He isn't evil in the way a Dalek is evil.
Right.
A Dalek wants to exterminate you because you aren't a Dalek. It's ideological. Shockeye just wants lunch.
It's the banality of it.
Exactly. The banality of the evil is what makes your skin crawl. He treats Jamie with the exact same emotional detachment that a human butcher treats a lamb. It forces the reader and you, the listener, to look in the mirror and ask, is this how the cow feels?
It's a rough mirror to look into.
Okay.
So we have Shockeye, the hungry savage. We have Stike, the brutal Sontaran soldier. And we have Chessene, the augmented genius who is secretly pulling everyone's strings.
The mastermind.
They've taken the station. They've seemingly killed the second Doctor in that horrific blue fire.
And this is where the narrative completely pivots. We jump forward in the timeline to the sixth Doctor.
And the contrast is jarring, to say the least. We go from a bloodbath on a dark space station to a fishing trip.
A very, very unsuccessful fishing trip.
Yeah.
The sixth Doctor and his companion, Peri, are just wandering through this desolate, heath-like landscape. The Doctor is trying to catch a gumblejack.
Which I'm almost certain isn't a real fish.
Oh, it's definitely not a real fish. And Peri calls him out on it in the text. She strongly suspects he just invented the name so he could stand by a river and do nothing all day.
Which is very in character.
Very. It shows that arrogant, blustering charm of the sixth Doctor. He's trying to impress her with his vast knowledge of xenobiology, but really he's just bored.
But the boredom doesn't last long at all, because suddenly he collapses. And this isn't just a feint. He doesn't just swoon. He describes it as feeling like his actual life is being severed.
This is a brilliant sci-fi concept Holmes introduces here, called a temporal tautology.
Okay, unpack that for us, because that sounds heavy.
So, we know the second Doctor is his past self. If the second Doctor dies on that space station, the sixth Doctor cannot exist. It's the classic grandfather paradox. You can't be alive if your grandfather, or in this case, your literal younger self, died before you were born.
So the obvious question is, why doesn't he just vanish, pop out of existence instantly?
Because time in this universe isn't always instant. There's a resonance to it. The event in the past, the trauma, the near-death experience of the second Doctor is sending physical shockwaves up the timeline. The sixth Doctor is feeling the echo of his own death before it has technically been finalized. It's physically crippling him.
It's such a great way to raise the stakes. He knows something is fundamentally wrong with his own timeline. He knows he needs a doctor. So, logically, he decides to go see his old friend, the geneticist Dastari.
And he has absolutely no idea, of course, that Dastari is the one causing the problem. He thinks Dastari is a safe harbor. So they hop in the TARDIS and fly straight to Station J7.
And when they finally get there, the thumbprint is dead. It's dark. It smells of, quote, ancient musk and death.
The atmosphere building in this section is superb. It transitions into a haunted house story. The station's computer system is malfunctioning in this paranoid defense mode. It actively tries to depressurize the corridor to kill them. It raises the temperature. The Doctor and Peri are essentially fighting the building itself.
Just to walk down the hall.
Yes.
And in the shadows of this dead station, they find something wild.
They find Jamie.
But it's not the Jamie the Doctor remembers.
Not at all. He's completely gone, feral. He's been living in the vents for who knows how long, eating whatever scraps he can find, absolutely terrified of the potato heads.
He actually attacks Peri, right, because he thinks she's a spy for them.
He's hallucinating with fear. He keeps screaming, "The potato heads killed the Doctor!"
Yeah.
Over and over, because he saw it happen. To him, it is an absolute, undeniable fact.
But the sixth Doctor, despite his ego, he does the math. He looks at Jamie, he looks at himself, and he says, wait, if I am here, physically standing in front of you, then I didn't die. Therefore, what you saw had to be a lie.
It's a deduction of existence, I think. Therefore I am. Or rather, I am, therefore I was. He realizes that the death scene in the glass cylinder must have been a hologram or some kind of simulation, a forgery designed to fool the Time Lords into thinking the Doctor was dead so they would stop looking for him.
So the second Doctor isn't dead, he's been kidnapped. But where? The universe is a really big place to hide one Time Lord.
Which leads to one of my absolute favorite sequences of Time Lord detective work. The Doctor decides to enter a deep telepathic trance. He tries to latch onto his past self's timeline using their shared consciousness.
It's a very weird scene. He's humming, he's swaying back and forth. Peri's just standing there thinking, what on earth is he doing?
And then he violently snaps out of it and shouts, "Santa Maria!"
And Peri thinks he's praying.
Right. But he's not praying at all. He's identified a specific sound. He heard a bell telepathically, specifically the bell of the Santa Maria Cathedral. He recognizes the tone, the exact pitch, the resonance, and that acoustic signature pinpoints the location to one specific city on Earth.
Seville, Spain.
Which is such a brilliant, jarring choice of setting. We leave the gray, metallic, claustrophobic space station, and suddenly we are thrust into the blinding sun, the dust, and the orange groves of Andalusia.
It's sensory overload. You can almost feel the heat radiating off the page in the book. The villains have set up their base in a hacienda, the hacienda of Doña Arana.
It's this crumbling, majestic old estate. And this is where we meet the civilians, the innocent bystanders who just get completely swept up in this alien badness. We meet Oscar Botcherby and Anita.
Oscar is, well, he is a character that I feel only Robert Holmes could write.
Absolutely. He is a British expat, a somewhat out-of-work actor who is currently managing a restaurant in Seville, but his true passion, his absolute obsession in life is collecting moths.
Moths, of all things.
Yes. He wanders around the Spanish countryside with a butterfly net and a killing jar filled with cyanide, looking for rare specimens. He is incredibly pompous. He quotes Shakespeare constantly. He is utterly ridiculous, and he's completely, wonderfully harmless.
There is a real tragedy to Oscar, though. He represents the completely mundane world. He's worried about catching a moth, while literally just down the road in the cellar of the hacienda, aliens are plotting to destroy the time continuum.
It creates this intense friction between the domestic and the cosmic. Oscar actually sees the Sontaran ship land, and because his human brain just can't process alien spaceship, he assumes it's a tragic plane crash. He runs towards it to help, waving his little net around. It's funny, but it's also filled with dread because we, the audience, know exactly what he's running towards.
Sontarans do not need help from a man with a butterfly net.
Definitely not.
So let's look at what is actually happening in that cellar. The villains have the second Doctor strapped to a table. What is the actual master plan here? They have the Karts-Reimer time module, but we know they can't use it safely.
Right. Remember the high-voltage power line analogy? They need the rubber gloves? They've realized through Dastari's research that Time Lords have a biological component called the symbiotic nuclei within their cells. This is also known as the Rassilon imprimatur. It's a genetic marker that physically stabilizes them in the time vortex.
So Dastari just wants to extract it.
That was the original plan, yes. Vivisect the Doctor, isolate the nuclei, and inject it into themselves so they can finally use the time machine without disintegrating.
But Chessene, she gets greedy.
She gets lonely. Or perhaps vain is the better word for it. She realizes that if Dastari just extracts the nuclei, she gets the power of time travel, sure, but she's still totally alone in her genius. She wants an equal. She wants a consort.
So she changes the plan entirely. She doesn't want to kill the second Doctor anymore. She wants to transform him.
She orders Dastari to perform a massive genetic splice. She wants to turn the second Doctor into an Androgum. She wants to give him the instincts, the appetite, and the savage nature of her people, but keep his Time Lord intelligence and raw power. She essentially wants to create a god to stand beside her as a goddess.
This is the ultimate nature versus nurture experiment brought to life again. If you take a Time Lord, a being entirely defined by wisdom, pacifism, and restraint, and you inject him with the DNA of a savage glutton, who wins out?
And this is exactly where the story goes into its darkest territory. Because while Dastari is prepping the surgery down in the cellar, Shockeye is let loose on the Spanish countryside.
Shockeye in Seville. It sounds like the setup for a sitcom, but it's a full-on horror movie.
He is bored. He just wants to explore Earth cuisine. But he's incredibly frustrated because he goes to the local markets and he sees all this food, but he doesn't understand why there are no recipes for the humans themselves. To him, looking at a busy crowd of people in Seville is like walking through a grocery store where the food is walking around on its own.
And there is that terrifying sequence where he spots Peri.
Peri has arrived with the sixth doctor and is trying to sneak into the hacienda grounds. Shockeye spots her from a distance. He doesn't raise the alarm. He doesn't call the Sontaran guards. He just starts drooling.
He literally chases her through the orange groves.
And the language Holmes uses here in the text is so specific and chilling. He talks about marbling, he talks about boning and rolling the saddle. He is visually dissecting her as she runs for her life. He catches her, throws her over his shoulder, and carries her back to the kitchen, fully and calmly intending to butcher her.
It's the total helplessness that gets you. Peri is a capable companion. She's been to alien planets, she's faced monsters, but here she is reduced to nothing more than meat.
Exactly. It completely strips away her agency as a character. It's only Chessene's intervention that saves her at the last second. Chessene needs hostages to maintain control, so she stops Shockeye from killing her. But the intent was absolutely there.
Meanwhile, back down in the lab, Testari actually goes through with it. He performs the operation on his old friend, the second doctor. He infuses him with Shockeye's genetic material, making him 50% Androgum.
And the physical transformation is immediate. When the second doctor wakes up, he looks different. His eyebrows are noticeably bushier, his skin is coarser, but the real change is in his eyes. The classic doctor twinkle is totally gone. It's replaced by this flat, hungry, predatory stare.
This leads to the buddy trip from hell. The Androgum doctor and Shockeye decide to leave the hacienda and just go out for dinner in town.
The doctor, a man who has saved the universe countless times, now just wants to eat. And not just eat, he wants to gorge himself. They steal a local farmer's truck to get to the city.
And the theft of the truck. That's the real moment you realize the doctor is truly gone.
Yes. The farmer comes out and refuses to give them the truck. Shockeye, with casual, easy strength, just snaps the man's neck. It's over in a single second. And the doctor. The second doctor, who cherishes all life, he just watches it happen and gives a little indulgent smile.
That smile chills me to the bone every time I think about it.
It proves Testari's hypothesis, at least for the moment. The biology is completely overriding the history. The Androgum genes are dominant. The doctor has lost his moral compass entirely because his chemical balance has shifted. It strongly suggests that our morality is fragile, that it's just a matter of enzymes and neurotransmitters.
So while the Androgum doctor and Shockeye are heading into Seville to, quote, dine like kings, the villainous alliance back at the hacienda is rapidly collapsing.
As all villainous alliances eventually do, the Sontarans, Stike and Varl, have figured out that Chessene is just using them. They don't want to share the time machine anymore. They want to take it back to the Medillion cluster and use it to win their eternal war against the Rutans.
But Chessene is a super genius. She's 5 steps ahead of 2 soldiers.
She is. She knows Sontaran physiology intimately. She knows their specific weakness. She lures them into a trap in the cellar passage and unleashes coronic acid.
Coronic acid, that sounds exceptionally nasty.
It's a Rutan weapon. The Rutans are the Sontarans' mortal enemies. The acid is designed to attack cloned tissue specifically. It's horrific. Major Varl is practically dissolved where he stands. Stike, being the commander, is slightly tougher. He manages to drag himself, literally half melting, towards the time module.
He thinks he can still escape. He still believes in the mission.
But he doesn't know that the second doctor, before his terrible transformation, had actually sabotaged the machine. He removed a vital component called the Briode nebulizer.
I do love the classic Doctor Who technobabble, Briode nebulizer.
It's classic nonsense, but within the story, it's vital. Without it, the machine is a complete death trap. Stike activates it, and the instability of the vortex tears him apart. He stumbles out of the machine, his legs are blown off, and he eventually triggers his ship's self-destruct.
So the Sontarans are completely out of the picture. They're effectively paced. Now we focus on the restaurant in town, La Piranella.
This is the scene that everyone remembers from the book. You have Shockeye and the newly transformed Androgum doctor sitting at a nice table in a high-end restaurant in Seville, and they are ordering everything on the menu.
They're shouting things like, "Bring us the raw meat! Bring us the field fare pie!"
It's gluttony on an epic, disgusting scale. They are literally tearing into the food with their bare hands. The other diners are horrified, obviously. But amidst all this grotesquerie, in walks Oscar Botcherby.
Poor Oscar. He's the manager of La Piranella. He sees these 2 lunatics racking up an absolute fortune in food, and he thinks, as any manager would, I need to check they can actually pay for this.
He approaches them with his little notepad. He's trying to be very polite, trying to maintain the decorum of his fine establishment. He presents the bill to Shockeye.
And Shockeye, of course, has absolutely no concept of human money.
He offers Oscar Narg notes. It's an alien currency. Oscar looks at it and says, I can't accept this. He insists on real money, on pesetas, and in his insistence, he touches Shockeye's arm.
And that is the fatal mistake.
Shockeye despises being touched by what he considers lower species. In a flash, he grabs a knife from the table and stabs Oscar.
It happens so unbelievably fast. The tone shifts from a mildly funny scene about bad alien table manners to a brutal murder in a split second.
And Oscar's death is surprisingly poignant for his side character. He collapses into the arms of Anita, his assistant and companion. He's bleeding out on the floor of his own restaurant. And as he dies, he starts quoting Shakespeare. To die, to sleep.
But his final words, they aren't about the pain. They aren't about the aliens.
No. He looks up at Anita and says, "Please take care of my beautiful moths."
That breaks my heart every single time. It's just so incredibly human.
It perfectly anchors the story. It reminds us that while the doctors are having their high-concept, galaxy-spanning adventure, normal, real people get hurt. Oscar was just a guy who liked catching moths. He absolutely didn't deserve this.
The shock of the violence actually affects the second Doctor, doesn't it? It seems to break the genetic spell somehow.
Yes, combined with the sudden arrival of the sixth Doctor and Jamie, who have finally tracked them down to the restaurant. The Androgum genes were always going to be somewhat unstable. The Doctor's underlying Time Lord physiology starts to fight back against the graft. He rejects the transformation. He looks at Oscar's bleeding body. He looks at Shockeye, and the profound horror of what he's become washes over him. He returns to his normal senses.
But they certainly aren't safe yet. Shockeye is furious that his dining companion has turned on him. The Doctors and Jamie have to retreat all the way back to the hacienda.
Which is really the last place they should go, because Chessene is still there waiting. And now that her Sontaran muscle is dead and her grand concert plan has failed, she is deeply desperate. She captures them all again.
And we get one final, truly brutal scene down in the kitchen. Shockeye gets his hands on Jamie again.
And this time, he's not just looking and assessing. He's actively prepping the meal. He uses live electrodes to stimulate Jamie's muscles. He calmly explains to the Doctor that this tenderizes the meat. He is literally torturing Jamie just to improve the texture of his flesh for cooking.
It's sickening. But while that's happening, down in the cellar, something even more important to the theme of the story is happening. Dastari is watching Chessene.
Dastari is the only wild card left on the board. He still believes in his creation. He still desperately thinks Chessene is a goddess of pure intellect. But then he sees her do something that completely shatters his entire worldview.
She licks blood off the floor.
Specifically, the Doctor's blood. The second Doctor was injured earlier, and there's a pool of his blood on the stone doorstep. Chessene, in a moment of intense stress and frustration, entirely drops her sophisticated facade. She crouches down and greedily licks the blood. It's a primal, purely animalistic reflex.
And Dastari sees the whole thing.
And the scales just fall from his eyes. He finally realizes that despite all the advanced genetic engineering, despite the massive IQ boost, despite teaching her opera and manners, she is still fundamentally an androgum. Her core nature hasn't changed one bit.
He admits his failure out loud. He says, "I raised your abilities, but your nature is unchanged."
It's a tragic admission for a scientist of his stature. He realizes his entire life's work is a lie. He tries to make amends. He tries to free the Doctors. He finally stands up to her.
And how does his augmented masterpiece repay him for this realization?
She shoots him, dead, without a single moment's hesitation. She kills her own creator, her father figure, simply because he is no longer useful to her escape plan. It proves his final point perfectly. She is a monster.
So Dastari dies on the floor. Chessene makes a desperate run for it. She jumps into the Kartzreimer time module.
She genuinely thinks she can escape into the time vortex. But she doesn't know about the sabotage. She doesn't have the wrestle on imprimatur, and the machine itself is broken. She activates it, and she is instantly molecularly disintegrated. She is ultimately destroyed by her own overreaching ambition.
Which leaves exactly one villain still standing, Shockeye.
The final boss fight. But it's not a laser battle or a clever battle of wits. It takes place in the muddy woods outside the hacienda. Shockeye is relentlessly chasing the second Doctor. He can literally smell the Doctor's blood.
And the second Doctor, he's not a warrior. He's the cosmic hobo. He usually tricks people or he runs away until they defeat themselves.
But here he has to end it personally. He realizes that Shockeye cannot be reasoned with. You can't negotiate with an appetite.
So he uses Oscar's equipment.
Poetic justice at its finest. He finds Oscar's moth-collecting gear, the killing jar, the jar full of cyanide. He completely soaks a cloth pad in the poison. He waits in the brush for Shockeye to lunge.
And he jumps on his back.
It's a terribly messy, desperate physical struggle. The doctor violently clamps the cyanide pad over Shockeye's nose and mouth. He rides this massive alien down to the ground, smothering him in the dirt until he finally stops twitching.
It's genuinely shocking to see the doctor kill someone so directly and physically. Usually the villain falls off a convenient cliff or gets blown up by their own malfunctioning bomb. But this is an execution.
It is an execution, and Holmes writes it exactly that way on purpose. It vividly shows the toll of the adventure. The doctor had to temporarily become a savage to defeat the savage. He had to use the killing jar on Shockeye, just like Oscar used on his helpless moths. Shockeye, the man who treated everyone else like mere animals, is put down exactly like an animal.
So the dust finally settles. The bad guys are all dead. Distari, Stike, Farrell, Chessene, Shockeye. That is a lot of bodies.
A very high body count for this kind of story. Oscar, the local Spanish farmer, the scientist on the space station, it's a total bloodbath.
The two doctors say their goodbyes.
And typical of their dynamic, they don't hug. The Sixth Doctor makes a very snarky comment. He says something along the lines of, "The timeline is big enough for both of us, but barely."
And Jamie and the second doctor get back in their tardies and leave. They have to get back to their own proper time so the Sixth Doctor can continue to exist.
Leaving the Sixth Doctor and Peri standing alone in the Spanish sun, probably needing a very, very long holiday after all that.
So let's zoom out for a bit. We've walked through the entire plot. But what are we actually taking away from the two doctors? Why does this specific story matter so much?
I think there are three big pillars here that we need to look at. First, there is the total deconstruction of the nature versus nurture debate. Dostari's failure is absolute and undeniable. The story posits that you simply cannot engineer morality. Intelligence is just a tool, and if you give a very sharp tool to a creature with a cruel nature, you don't get a better person. You just get efficient cruelty. Chessene wasn't a better person because she was smart. She was just a much more dangerous monster.
That is a very dark lesson. It essentially says that innate character matters significantly more than raw, nurtured intelligence.
Precisely. Secondly, we really have to talk about the vegetarianism angle. Robert Holmes, the author, was a vegetarian, and this entire book acts as a piece of activism. But importantly, it's not preachy. It's highly satirical. Now, we're not taking a stance on that politics either way, but it is deeply woven into the text.
It holds up a mirror to the reader.
It does. By creating Shockeye, Holmes forces us to see ourselves from the outside. When Shockeye talks about tenderizing Jamie with electrodes, we are rightfully horrified. But Holmes is pointing out that this is exactly what humans do to veal. When Shockeye kills Oscar simply because he considers him an inferior species, Holmes is highlighting how humanity justifies eating livestock. It's explicitly designed to make you uncomfortable the next time you look at a meat menu.
I have to admit, it works. I'm definitely looking at my dinner plans a little differently tonight.
And finally, the third pillar, I think it's about the vulnerability of the Doctor himself. We like to think of him as this invincible, morally pure superhero. But here we see him tortured in a tube. We see him corrupted genetically to the point of smiling at a murder. We see him forced to commit a brutal execution with his bare hands just to survive. It strips away the superhero myth completely and shows us a desperate traveler who is just trying to survive a deeply hostile universe.
It's a gritty, nasty, and wonderfully complex piece of sci-fi.
It truly is Doctor Who with the safety rails completely taken off.
Well, on that cheerful note, I think we've thoroughly dissected the two doctors. But before we go, consider this. If intelligence is just a tool, and our morality can be rewritten by a simple change in our chemistry, as we saw with the Doctor, what is it that actually makes you, you? Are we all just a few genetic tweaks away from being a Shockeye?
That is a terrifying thought to leave on.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the darker side of the source material. We hope you didn't lose your appetite.
And remember, if you ever see a Sontaran, definitely run.
We'll see you next time. Stay curious.